I'm retired IFBB pro Jeff Christian, coach and author, and we're talking about the hard truth about bodybuilding and steroids. Let me start today with just a little story from the past, and I think it's very apropos here. Years ago when we were just coming out, and I came out of Jacksonville, same time Dexter Jackson did, and he went on, and I retired the first time in my early 20s. When we were working out in the gym, we had heard at one point that Dorian Yates was doing growth hormone mixed with B12. And so the more we caught this rumor, the more we found out that Dorian Yates, at least we thought or heard by rumor mill, was doing bull growth hormone mixed in B12. So what did we do as the first thing? We ran down to the feed and seed store, and sure enough, we found bull growth hormone. Now, we had no idea what it was or how to use it, but we also bought us a 50 ml bottle of vitamin B12. And so we got it back to the gym, and we cut the end of this growth hormone off, and it was a tube about this big around, and it was about that long, and then it had something on the end of it that you cut off, and somehow some sort of needle attached to it. Now, I got to be honest with you, when we started pushing that stuff out, we found out it was almost a paste. And so we were like, well, that's why he's mixing it in B12, because you can't shoot it if it's not some sort of liquid, right? So we were shooting this stuff into the B12, and we were putting the cap back on, and we would shake it up as violently as we could, open the cap back up, look down, and it's all coagulated inside this B12. And I was like, well, shoot, man, we didn't shake it long enough. So we put the cap back on. We keep shaking it, and look back in, and it's still coagulated and real like an oily slick all over the place in there. Man, I got to tell you, we did that over and over and over again, and that stuff never stopped looking like big, huge spots of white floating oil pits inside that B12. But because we were bodybuilders and information was scarce back then, no internet, we soldiered on like big warriors, gladiators in the gym, and we each took our syringe with an 18-gauge needle, pulled out a big oily mess of it, and replaced the needle with a 21-gauge, and proceeded to pop it in our glute and shove it as hard as we could, trying to get that oily mess to go in. Now, I got to be honest with you. Nothing ever happened. We didn't grow from it. And somehow we didn't die. I have no idea. I don't even have any idea how come we didn't get infections from it, because I'm sure it wasn't very sterile. But that's what we did back then, because there was no information. Let me tell you something. You have more information available to you at your fingertips than ever before. Any time in history of the world, you have information available to you. As a matter of fact, knowledge increases. In the 1800s, it increased about every 100 years. In the 1900s, it started to gradually go down until now, supposedly, knowledge doubles every 12 hours. That's what I've read, and that's pretty amazing. But here's the problem. You have more information available to you in your iPhone than NASA did when they sent a rocket to the moon, right? You have more information medically to you at your fingertips than at any other time in history. And you have more information about steroids, growth hormone, insulin, everything else available to you. But the problem is almost all of it's wrong. See, you're your own lab experiment. Try not to die. Come on, let's dig into this.
Be strong.
Hey guys, thank you for coming back this week. I am just amazed at how the last video has blown up. Quite honestly, I didn't expect that. I started this channel, honestly, just for fun. And then I got to the point where I thought, you know, if I can help one guy get away from this sport, or at least get away from the destructive forces of this sport, I thought that this would be worth it. So I did not expect the last video to blow up like it has, and I am very appreciative. So I want to ask you from the outstart, because I feel like I have a new mission in life, and that is this. I want to help get the word out about just how destructive this sport is. Now, I am going to be honest with you. I have already been under a lot of fire from my compatriots, from my colleagues, because how could you turn on the sport? Guys, I am not turning on this sport. I love bodybuilding. I love working out, but it is not my God. And when I see something happening like I see now, young people dying at 20, 21, 25, women dying from coaches giving them massive amounts of diuretics, something has to be done, and somebody has to sound the alarm. So if that's me and the bodybuilding world hates me, so be it. I don't care anymore. But I want to start out and give you a life principle that you need to get a handle on. Information is not wisdom. Listen, information is benign. You have to learn information to receive knowledge. Knowledge is the accumulation of information. But there again, knowledge doesn't ensure success. Just because you know something doesn't mean it's going to ensure your success in life. Okay? So information is benign. Knowledge is the accumulation of information, but wisdom is the right application of knowledge at the right time. You see, there is more information available to you in bodybuilding than any time in history. And that's great, right? But to be honest with you, the information that I have seen out there in forums and on bodybuilding.com and all of that garbage, I wouldn't give you 5 cents for it. Pros don't read any of that stuff either. And it's because all of those things are from guys who don't know what they're talking about. And quite honestly, they're spouting out information that they've heard from somebody else, and from somebody else. And so for you, you need to make sure that when you are considering a life journey like bodybuilding, you need to make sure that what you do is you have the right information, and that you accumulate that as knowledge, and then you apply that at the right time. That's called wisdom. Now, from my standpoint, where I come from, wisdom is the ability to see life from God's perspective over my life. And so for me, bodybuilding is no more an option in the way that I was doing it. I still love to go to the gym, and I'm still in there working out, but I don't take drugs like I used to or anything like that. I will forever have to take TRT, and honestly, I believe just about any guy over the age of 35 should be on TRT as long as their doctor is okay with it. I think it's fantastic, and I think it does a man a lot of good. Bodybuilders have Superman syndrome. You say, what is that? Well, it's actually very simple. The reason why bodybuilders never go to a doctor, and I don't care what 99% of them say that they do, most don't. The reason they don't is because, number one, they think nothing can touch them. Now, the problem is when you're on the amount of gear that bodybuilders are on, especially pro bodybuilders, and I've talked to bodybuilders that are well over $3,000 a week just in testosterone, The problem is you have all kinds of things that are going on that we don't know anything about that are going on the inside. You see, here's one of the problems with coaching. You go to a guy like what I used to do. You go to a guy that has street knowledge on how certain compounds and drugs act at certain times in certain ways and in certain combinations to produce a certain look at a certain time for a contest, right? So you get that guy who has a street knowledge, an exterior knowledge about what happens when you do this. And honestly, I was great at it. I could tell you what is going to happen when you take these compounds, how you're going to do that, how to get that shrink wrap look, how to get that 3D effect to where so when you are dieted down and you are in that contest shape, that when you walk on stage, you look shrink wrapped. You look like something out of a biology book. I was great at that. But here is the problem with coaching. The problem with coaching is we don't have a medical degree. We don't understand what's going on the inside. You see, that's a serious problem, and it's something I am so glad I'm out of, and I'm so blessed to be out of, because now I look back and I'm so thankful that I did not have anybody have any problems, but there could have been. How would I have managed that? And I look now, and in the Washington Post recently, go look it up. There have been numerous articles about coaches that are very popular that are being sued in a lot of trouble because they have clients that are in ICU rooms, clients that have died and everything else, and a lot of women too. How many women are taking so much diuretics that they're dying from it or permanently injured? What is going on in this sport? Listen, when you are killing the women off, there's something really wrong because women don't take near the amount of drugs that men do. And so when you have a coach that's injuring women, dude, guys, there's a problem. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is your longevity in the sport. How long do you honestly think you're going to make it? Now, I was in the sport in my younger years until my early 20s, retired, never walked into a gym again until I was almost 41. And so I had all of those years off of gear and everything else, but I started a massive comeback at the age of 41, went back into the gym, back on steroids, and then was in a car accident about 15 years ago and had to come back from that. So what do you think your longevity is? Now, let me just tell you this. I have said to many, many people, and I believe this is true, bodybuilders are like shooting stars. They hope they hit the big time before they burn out. And so your longevity in the sport is based on your genetic ability. Now, I'm not talking about just your genetic ability or your genetic makeup when it comes to your muscle insertions and all of that. What I am saying is your genetic ability in your medical history. Now, listen to me. What I am saying is in your medical history, in your family, there could be latent tumors or cancers or anything else that could be there that are latent inside your body that's quite honestly you don't even know you have. And when you start taking growth hormone and IGF-1, LR3, PEG-MGF, and especially all of those type of things, what you find out is they indiscriminately grow cells, right? And so everybody, and guys, listen, I am guilty. I did this for many, many years, okay? I just found out my brother has cancer on his adrenal gland. And what I just found out just the other day is that it is hereditary within my family. And so now I'm having to go get checked out and see if I have that same issue. And so my kids are going to have to be checked as well. And so before you delve into taking this massive amount of compounds, you had better find out what is in your medical history. And the reason that's so important is when you start taking growth hormone and all of these other things, they indiscriminately, like I said, start growing cells. It does not matter, not just skeletal muscle, but it also grows other cells in your body. And so those cells can proliferate and become toxic or become cancerous. And before you know it, you're in big trouble. Let me give you a good example. And I'm not sure if I told this already in a video, but I told you I had a friend named Jimmy. And quite honestly, Jimmy was taking IGF-1, LR3, PEG-MGF, and insulin and growth hormone and a lot of other things. And he called me several years ago and he told me, hey man, I'm really bloated because again, I'm a coach, I'm an author, I've written things on bodybuilding and stuff like that. And he called me and said, hey, I need your help, man. I'm really bloated, I'm not feeling good. And I've been on for a while. And I asked him, I said, tell me the list of what you're on. And he told me, and when he got to the list of all of the growth hormone and the insulin, and he got to the IGF-1 LR3 and the other peptides he was on, I told him, I said, dude, danger right there. Warning flag. Get away from that stuff. You shouldn't be on that stuff for a long period of time. So I told him, I said, look, I just want to give you a real simple test. I said, I want you to take your right side right around your rib cage level, just below it, and I want you to push on there I want you to push hard. And he started to push and he goes, oh. And I said, what's wrong? He goes, whoa, man, I can't push very hard. I'm really sore. And I said, that's your liver, brother. I said, you have got to get off this stuff. And let me tell you something. We already know the damage that it does to the liver, but we also know the damage that it does to kidneys. I have a good friend of mine, I won't tell you his name, lived out in Chicago, and he left this planet about 1.5 years ago. Why? Because he destroyed his kidneys using high dosages of oral steroids. Remember, orals are processed twice through the body, and it just destroyed his kidneys. And so you have to understand that it's so important that you find out long before you take this little jaunt, before you play Russian roulette, long before you take this chance, you need to find out what is in your medical history. Because whether you make it very long or not, a lot of it is dependent on what's been happening in your family. Is there heart disease, liver disease? Is there cancers? What is there? And if you choose to go into it, you're playing Russian roulette. Guys, don't be a Superman. Find out what's in your medical history. Don't be dumb. Be wise. Guys, listen, this is what I say. Look at life from the 20,000-foot view. Now, you say, oh, Jeff, you're just now coming to this type of wisdom in your life. Yeah, sadly, at 56 years old, sadly, this is where I've come to. And sadly, this is what I'm trying to do now to get you. And if I can just get you, one person, to say, hey, Jeff, man, I'm going to go natural. Doesn't matter. I'm good, man. I don't have to do the steroids. I've been contemplating it. I'm good. I'm going to lay off. Then this was a success. In bodybuilding, you are your own lab experiment. My friend Jimmy that I told you about, and sadly I have to say, he was married to a really nice girl, and he put this girl on a ton of anabolics and different compounds, and she was literally like his personal lab experiment. My wife and I used to say, man, she literally is like his Frankenstein because he was trying to build her into a pro and he was using compounds and things on her that I thought were way outlandish, quite honestly. And so when you are a bodybuilder, you are doing the same thing to yourself. You are becoming a lab experiment. You do not know what is going on inside your body. You're just hoping to get the look that you want to. And let me give you a principle from the Bible. You may not like it, but I'm giving it to you anyway. The Bible says, they that compare themselves among themselves are not wise. What is the opposite of a wise person? A foolish person. And God said, if I compare myself with other people, I'm a fool. And I have to be honest, I look at bodybuilding now through different eyes since I got right with God in 2019. And I look at it and I go, dude, I spent my life comparing myself with other people, not in how smart they were or anything else, but in, was I physically superior to them? God, what a shame to waste your life that way. So, you are your lab experiment. And when you are putting compounds into your body, and especially compounds you don't even know where they're made, let's break it down and get all the way into the dirt right now. You ready for this? You're ordering your stuff from China. What you produce is your own Frankenstein. And you are building your masterpiece, right? And you are the guy in the lab and you're pouring things and you're doing all of this stuff, injecting yourself, you're trying to stretch your fascia, do all of this other stuff, but you don't even know where all of this stuff comes from. That's the problem. And I know what you say, oh man, I've got me a good supplier, I know it's good stuff. Really? Where do the powders come from? Are the powders contaminated? Most of this stuff comes from China. This probably made in some guy's garage somewhere. Honestly, you don't really know what you're putting into your body. Peptides that you buy off the internet, if you can even buy them or not. I don't know, I haven't looked in a while, but if you can even buy them, I happen to know a guy that owned 3 different peptide companies, and I happen to know where they were made, and they were made in a garage. So you don't know what you don't know. And what you don't know is where this stuff is made. And the big I don't know is, what is it doing inside of you? You don't know. And so if you have a loved one, a young man or a young woman or a friend or something like that in your life that is involved in this stuff, and you see them getting bigger and bigger, but you see them having some issues, it's probably because the stuff they're using is dirty. I had a father and a mother come to me, and they said, our son is a great guy, but he's getting involved in this sport, and we're really concerned about him because he already has some health issues. And so I went and I kind of took this young man under my wing, and I had this hard conversation with him. And the conversation was very difficult, but it's one that I believe every seasoned guy needs to have with a young man. And that is this. Number one, why are you doing this? What is driving you to use these drugs? Number two, do you really think this is going to be your life? If the odds are as slim as somebody getting into the NBA or the NFL, if those odds are that slim, do you really think this is going to be worth it for you? And then number three, do you really want to put your health at risk this way? Because the truth is, the time you get into this and the further you go, the less you will go to a doctor because you don't want to have the headache of telling them what's going on, getting dropped from your insurance, or any of these other issues. You won't go, and you will start developing problems, and you will start developing issues that could snowball and eventually lead to your demise. And don't tell me it doesn't happen. I've seen it numerous times. It's a tragedy. And this sport has gotten to where all we want is bigger, freakier, nastier, drier, grainier, all of those things, to the point where they're almost unrealistic. The drugs are getting better, so to speak, but they're also getting more dangerous. Guys, God never designed our bodies to look like that. I am guilty party number one. I pursued it my entire life. And next week, I'm going to tell you my story about how I was obsessed with bodybuilding before I could write. And I'm not exaggerating. Before I could write, I was obsessed with it. And how that obsession followed me all the way through my lifetime. And how it nearly destroyed my life. And so I will tell you about that next week. We get body dysmorphia. Look, guys, I'm 245 pounds now at 5'8". I still look in the mirror and I think I'm a small guy. Why? Because I so conditioned myself as a 300 plus pound man to look in the mirror and still think at 300 pounds I was small. At 245, I go into a gym. I'm still one of the bigger guys in a gym, but I'm not the biggest guy in the gym. When you're that big, at 300 plus pounds, you're 5'8", you're the biggest guy in the gym no matter where you go. But I got news for you. It doesn't matter, and it comes at a price. They that compare themselves among themselves are not wise. I was a fool. Before we leave, I'm going to ask you to do something. I'm going to ask you, if you will, would you please share this video with somebody you know, somebody you care about? Would you please subscribe? And would you please turn on that notification bell so that when next week comes out, you're ready to see it? Because I promise you, next week, I'm going to share my story with you. And I just want you to hear it because you're going to know somebody that's in that same type of situation. That's the reason you're here. Thank you again for stopping by. Guys, I am so blessed and so honored that you would even watch this video. Again, thank you. And if you haven't seen the first two videos, please go back and watch those. And from my family to yours, God bless you.